You're listening to Procurement 6, the weekly podcast from the team at Art of Procurement that summarizes this week in procurement in just 6 short segments.
Hi there, my name is Philip Eitzen and today is Friday, November the 1st, 2024.
6.
With only 4 days to go into the US election, at least at the time of publication, the noise surrounding both candidates is definitely at its peak. Last week, my colleague Kelly took an in-depth look at the policy positions of both Kamala Harris and Donald Trump to consider, based on policy alone, what may the impacts be for procurement and supply chain professionals. You can listen to all 4 shows by scrolling back in your Art of Procurement or Art of Supply podcast feeds, or by going to artofprocurement.com/podcast.
5.
In this week's Art of Procurement podcast, I talked with Joel Collin-Demer, the consulting principal at Pure Procurement. So when they're struggling to create new technology roadmaps, procurement often struggles to get the kind of support they need from other functional areas of the business. Building what Joel refers to as user communities can help bridge this gap. In this short clip, he explains how user communities are a key part of the digitization process. Let's listen in.
So you want to create user communities where you're able to train folks on how to use the systems properly, but also gather their feedback on what are the pain points, what are the things that are taking you the most time today, where are the opportunities that they see in terms of improving supplier service or good quality, right? Or even the productivity at the business unit level, right? So having a user community and then having a prioritization committee, right? Where you and IT, procurement and IT are sitting there, but you also have representatives from your business unit. And then that's kind of a cycle, right? Where your user community pushes stuff out to you or brings stuff to you that are opportunities. You also have a vision as procurement of the wider opportunities or the global opportunities. Yeah. Those come to a head in your prioritization committee, and together with the business, like you discuss and you get behind a prioritization or a roadmap, a sequential development of ideas, and the IT constraints come up, the procurement strategy and objectives and why we need to invest in certain places first comes up, and the business's perspective comes up, right? And then you craft a global vision, and then you're able to execute on it, right? So that's kind of, and I would add, you cultivate that kind of a business case culture as well, right? And in that cycle where you're able to say, okay, well, what's going to get the greatest benefit for our company as a whole, not just, you yourself.
4.
Now, small changes can have a big impact. Inspired by my podcast recording with Joel, we had a conversation on LinkedIn this week about how impactful small changes can be when you're looking to transform procurement. There is this bias, which is often brought to a transformation in my experience, that suggests everything old is bad. And therefore you have to throw everything out and start again. And that, of course, includes the people. Now, the reality is that that's rarely the case at all. I recall an example of a transformation that I led where the leader of the procurement team was inhibiting the rest of their organization. They had such a bad reputation across the rest of the C-suite that it didn't matter how good the rest of their team was. A change was made, and it lifted a weight off the shoulders of their team, and with some careful change management, led to a complete change in how the C-suite viewed the procurement value proposition. Now, of course, it's easier to identify and address this as an external consultant coming into the team. However, digging into the weeds with some self-reflection that's backed by data and probably some anecdotal feedback is a great way to identify that one thing that could be transformational. And the good thing about small changes having a big impact is that it then helps build the business case for further larger investment.
This is Procurement 6 from Art of Procurement. To get notified every time an episode is published, go to artofprocurement.com/subscribe. 3.
I'm a big believer that you have to experience new technology to truly understand the impact that it can have, and really for it to act as food for the mind as you begin to think about ways that it can be applied to the challenges within your business. Now, last week, Art of Procurement and Oro Labs hosted a procurement orchestration roadshow in New York City and Chicago. And as part of the roadshow, Oro demoed how orchestration enables stakeholders to quickly request various products and services. Now, after that session, I actually shared in the roundtable, I shared some of the reasons that I believe that orchestration can be a game changer for procurement. First of all, it's going to allow for a lot more flexibility in how we build our procurement text apps. Think about highly niche apps. For example, category-specific enabling technology can now be seamlessly integrated into the procurement workflow instead of just being another tool that gets bought, goes forgotten, and gets unused. Now, I also love the ability to experiment quickly with new processes or process updates. Historically, it's taken months to write and deploy procurement process updates, and well, up to a year based on some of the research that we did. And with all the best will in the world, you never know how the process is going to work in practice until you go live. Orchestration allows you to A/B test new processes and process changes to very small and specific audiences or to test very specific use cases. You can quickly make tweaks based on the results of the tests before deploying the most optimized version of your new process or process change to the rest of the organization. And also, we're finally approaching what I think is fully guided buying. So this is enabling an operating model shift that ensures we're really focusing as a procurement team on the most important categories and supplier relationships, as defined not just by total spend, but a number of other considerations as well. We've been hoping for this, I think, for a long time in procurement, and doing it removes the friction inherent in the procurement process, especially for low value and low dollar purchases. That's often the friction that defines the perception of procurement across all organizations. I'm really excited for the future of procurement, and I can't wait to unpack all of these topics again in the near future.
2.
How are CIOs gaining buy-in on generative AI? Well, that was the key question that a number of panelists from Kroger, AstraZeneca, and Verizon addressed at last week's Gartner IT Symposium, as covered by CIO Dive. Now, according to the report, nearly all IT workers and executives believe AI initiatives fall flat when teams don't know how to work with the tools. And I would suggest that the same is true within procurement as well. Verizon's CIO, Wael Fahim, stated that they start at the top with executives so they would know how to communicate with and coach their teams. After going through a crash course, executives tailored curriculums according to business unit and employee seniority. The technical track included guidance on evaluating, piloting, and implementing AI-based systems. Kroger curated its own training for employees too. Leaders focused heavily on gaining buy-in via in-person opportunities, so the company hosted off-site events at universities for executives to build data acumen. Each business leader participated in workshops, diving into the areas where AI could help them and their teams the most. AstraZeneca also held learning and development events for employees. They covered topics that focused more on theory, while others dived into technical aspects through seminars and hands-on experience. AstraZeneca's CIO stated that when we have the tools, you should be using them. Otherwise, you start to outdate yourself. He also stated his belief that employees who know how to leverage AI will replace those employees that don't know how to leverage AI. I think all the findings from this CIO event on this topic really reflect and mirror what I've been hearing in the procurement space. And it was just interesting to see, read, and hear about them from a different perspective.
1.
Services spend management requires its own unique targeted approach that's customized to the needs and requirements of each individual service. A one-size-fits-all model here just doesn't work. But exactly what does work? Well, to find that out, we need a better understanding of how companies are approaching their services spend management. And that's where we need your input. Art of Procurement has just launched our second annual Services Spend Management Survey. And we'd love for anyone who manages services spend to head to our website and get involved. It's a short survey, and all of your answers are anonymous. If you take part, once the survey closes, we'll share the results with you so that you can benchmark your own services spend management approach. The survey will ultimately give us all better insights into the strategic importance of services to the business, tactics for establishing risk versus reward mechanisms for service providers within the deal constructs, and ways to measure outcomes for services spend beyond cost savings. If you visit artofprocurement.com today, you can take the survey or check out the show notes in this episode and you'll find a link in there too.
Thanks for listening. We'll be back next Friday at 6 a.m. U.S. Eastern Time. If you've enjoyed this pod, help us grow and tell your peers to search for Procurement 6 wherever they get their podcasts.